Ethan Drake stepped off the glimmering ramp of the diplomatic shuttle, his boots clicking softly against the polished, obsidian-like surface of the landing bay. The structure was vast, with a translucent dome that let in the vibrant, swirling colors of Veyra's sky. Clouds shimmered above in hues of dark teal, flecked with silver motes of planetary dust that drifted in the thin atmosphere. A mild breeze, sweet with the scent of alien flora, brushed against Ethan's face, and he inhaled slowly, trying to anchor himself in this strange, new world. He had been chosen for a specific mission, to open channels of peace between Earth's alliance and the mysterious realm of Veyra. Rumors swirled back home about Veyra's ancient lineage, about the telepathic abilities and advanced technology of its people. The Veyrans were reclusive, their civilization lightly documented, yet Earth's leaders believed a common ground might be found. Some claimed a tenuous alliance existed ages ago, lost in the haze of cosmic time, but Ethan was here to forge a renewed bond, or at least to attempt it. His eyes roamed the vast interior of the landing area. Soft, bioluminescent crystals sprang up from the floor in symmetrical lines, their light shifting through a cycle of ocean green to faint lavender. He watched in fascination as the crystals seemed to respond to his presence, brightening momentarily when he passed. A hush lay over everything, a hush that spoke of disciplined technology and a refined culture, one with deeper secrets than Earth's naive assumptions could fathom. He was greeted by a small entourage of Veyrans standing on a circular dais ahead. Their attire flowed in layered garments of shimmering fabric that clung to them in an almost liquid manner. Ethan could not help but notice that all of them wore delicate gloves, some more ornate than others, but each pair seemed carefully crafted to fit them like a second skin. Ethan's heart pounded with nervous anticipation. He was, after all, a mere representative from Earth. The success of this mission rested on his shoulders. If he failed, trade routes and cultural exchanges would wither. If he succeeded, perhaps two-star systems would join in a momentous era of cooperation and knowledge-sharing. He approached the small group, arms at his sides, posture respectful. At the forefront stood a woman with regal bearings, her tall figure accentuated by the slender lines of her attire. Her eyes, a startling color that combined starlit silver with a trace of luminous purple, seemed to pierce through him. Before he could speak, she inclined her head in a graceful bow. "Welcome, Earth Envoy," she said. Her voice was soft, resonant with an alien cadence. "I am Selara, liaison to our royal court." Ethan extended a hand, then hesitated, noticing how the Veyrans behind Selara tensed at the motion. Quickly, he drew back, recalling the rumor that touching a Veyran without permission was considered taboo. He offered an apologetic nod instead, and Selara's lips curved in a faint smile. "There is no harm in the gesture," she said, dipping her head. "But not all among us can safely reciprocate. Thank you for your courtesy." He noticed how her own hands remained by her sides, each covered by intricate gloves embroidered with slender filigree threads. Her posture was elegant and poised, though there was something guarded in the way she stood. Her presence felt charged, like latent lightning hidden behind clouds. "Thank you for having me, Princess Selara," Ethan said, echoing the official greeting he had been instructed to use. "On behalf of Earth, I hope this visit paves the way for understanding and cooperation." Selara's luminous eyes flickered. "You have come far, Ethan Drake. Know that we do not lightly share our world. But let us see if fate has woven our destinies together." Her cryptic response sent a subtle ripple through the assembled Veyrans. One or two lowered their heads, while another clasped gloved hands nervously. Ethan could not help but wonder if there was more to this than a simple diplomatic exchange. Then, with a gentle wave of her hand, Selara beckoned him to follow. As he did, he felt an unexplainable pull, as though the very air around her resonated with an arcane energy that responded to him in turn. Their steps echoed across the polished floor, heading toward a corridor of silvery arches that led deeper into the palace. Above them, the dome's stained glass panels filtered the setting Veyran sun into flickering kaleidoscopes of light, dancing along the walls in graceful shapes. Ethan took in every detail, absorbing the culture and the atmosphere, unaware that with each step he drew closer to a tangled prophecy. one that would forever change the fate of both his people and the world of Veyra. And Selara, walking beside him, carried a secret more lethal than any envoy might suspect. For her touch was death incarnate, and it had claimed the lives of all who dared come too close. But fate had already begun to weave a different strand for Ethan Drake, a human who would defy that lethal barrier and unravel the hidden prophecy that lay dormant under centuries of starlight. As they ventured through the palace's winding corridors, the architecture of Veyra revealed itself in all its splendor. The walls glowed softly, carved with ornate glyphs that shimmered whenever Selara approached. Pillars of translucent stone curved elegantly, so thin in places they looked like glass. From beyond, he could hear the faint hum of distant technology, though it melded seamlessly with the organic grace of the structure. Selara guided Ethan into a grand hall where tapestries floated, suspended in midair, depicting ancient battles and cosmic journeys. Each tapestry shimmered with living threads that glowed faintly, as if woven from stardust. Ethan's curiosity burned, but his attention drifted back to Selara, who turned her gaze upon him with a measured intensity. "You will be shown to your quarters, Earth Envoy," she said gently. "We have prepared accommodations suited to your physiology. Our air may be thin to you, so we have adjusted your rooms accordingly." He nodded, grateful for the courtesy. "Thank you, Princess. But before I rest, may I ask what role you play as liaison? On Earth, I am told you are a member of the royal house. Yet I see hesitation from your fellow Veyrans, as if they fear you." She regarded him calmly, though a flicker of sadness gleamed in her eyes. "I am indeed of the royal bloodline. I was chosen to greet you because it was determined I pose no threat to you." She paused, stepping closer until the fragrance of her hair, like night-blooming flowers, filled his senses. "There is a curse upon me, Ethan Drake, one that has been with me since birth. To touch my bare skin is to court death." He stepped back slightly, a current of awe and alarm surging through him. "I don't understand. Is it some form of toxin or a quirk of our ancient biology, perhaps?" she responded, her voice hushed. "No physician in the Empire can fully explain it. Those who touch me without protection, skin to skin, crumble to dust within moments. Not even our advanced technology has found a cure. My father, the king, called it a divine judgment from the old gods." Ethan's mind reeled. An alien princess with a lethal touch. The concept felt like something out of a forbidden myth. "How do you live with such a condition?" he asked softly. Selara offered a wistful smile. "By wearing gloves. By avoiding anything more than the slightest brush of contact. It is my fate, or so I believed until you arrived." She averted her gaze, and in that moment, Ethan sensed she wanted to say more. Instead, she turned on her heel, motioning toward a side passage. "Come, let me take you to your rooms. We can speak more freely there, away from prying eyes." Ethan followed, aware of the uneasy glances cast by the other Veyrans who stood about. Some seemed fearful, others curious, but the vast majority bore expressions of deference, if not outright reverence, to their princess. Yet an undercurrent of dread rippled through them, as if the lethal nature of her touch was but one layer of a deeper secret. He felt a strange sympathy for her. To wield such terrifying power must have been isolating, a lonely existence behind gloves and half-spoken warnings. They reached a smaller, circular room. The walls were lined with intricate mosaics depicting star clusters, and overhead, an oval ceiling let in the last rays of Veyra's setting sun. Selara gestured, and a section of the wall parted to reveal a spacious suite. A platform of softly glowing materials served as a bed, surrounded by flowing draperies. Delicate alien plants, resting in clear containers, exuded a faint, calming aroma. Selara turned to face him. "I will leave you to rest, Ethan Drake. Tomorrow, you shall meet with the Council of Elders. They are eager to hear from you." He hesitated, curiosity gnawing at him. "Princess, one last question. When you said you believed your fate was fixed until I arrived, what did you mean?" The corners of her mouth turned up in a haunted smile. "Rumors, whisperings from oracles, perhaps illusions conjured by the moonlight. It is said that somewhere, across the stars, there exists one soul who can touch me and not perish. I have never believed it. Too many have perished to entertain such hope. Yet, There are those who see your presence as a sign. Ethan felt the weight of her words. The idea that he, or any human, could somehow survive Selara's deadly skin contact was unimaginable. Still, he found himself strangely compelled by the thought, by the faint longing he glimpsed in her starlit eyes. I don't know about prophecies, he said quietly, but I do believe in forging new paths, no matter how impossible they seem. Selara studied him for a moment longer, her expression conflicted, as though trapped between caution and a fragile, unexpected hope. Then she dipped her head in a formal gesture. Rest well, Ethan Drake. The hours ahead will be long, and the revelations perhaps more than even our oracles have foreseen. With that, she left the suite, her slender frame dissolving into the hallway shadows. The air seemed to grow still, and Ethan found himself alone in a realm that felt both wondrous and foreboding. He reclined on the luminescent bed, eyes gazing upon the alien night sky through a curving window. Soon, a restful darkness took hold of him, but in his dreams, he saw visions of dust and starlight merging in a dance of fate, with Selara standing in the center, her gloved hand outstretched toward him, beckoning him closer. Morning in Veyra brought an otherworldly glow, as dawn's teal light spread gently across the horizon. Ethan stirred and rose, finding himself invigorated by the subtle fragrance of the alien plants that dotted his quarters. After freshening up, he stepped outside to find Selara awaiting him. She was clad in a flowing silver robe, gloves still in place, her expression serene yet distant. The Council of Elders will see you now, she said, inclining her head. Her tone carried a trace of underlying tension. They are the keepers of law and prophecy in our civilization. Be truthful, and they will respect you. Ethan nodded, feeling a rush of unease. Veyra was more than a standard monarchy. Its governance seemed anchored in layers of tradition, with these elders presumably wielding significant power. He followed Selara down a hallway lined with shimmering symbols. Every so often, they passed quiet alcoves where energy streams pulsed, fueling the palace's advanced infrastructure. At last, they arrived at a grand chamber, an amphitheater with seats arranged in a circular pattern. Strange sculptures hung in midair, shaped like elongated prisms, rotating slowly as if defying gravity. The Council of Elders, a group of 7, sat upon raised platforms. Their robes were more austere than the other Veyrans, fashioned from dark cloth with embroidered glyphs. They wore no gloves that Ethan could see, yet each carried a staff topped by a softly glowing orb. Ethan stood at the center of the chamber, Selara beside him. The elders regarded him with expressions varying from mild curiosity to grave contemplation. One of them, an older woman with hair the color of shimmering cobalt, rose to speak. Ethan Drake, envoy of Earth, she began, her voice resonating with authority. We welcome you to Veyra. Word has reached us that you come in peace, seeking alliance. But Veyra is no open port. We have guarded our realm for centuries, keeping our knowledge and technology from other star systems. Tell us now, why should we trust your intentions? Ethan took a breath, centering himself. Esteemed elders, Earth extends its hand in genuine friendship. We believe that knowledge and cooperation between our civilizations can benefit us both. We come not to plunder your resources, but to learn from your advanced science and share what we have discovered in our own region of space. A younger elder, whose eyes glowed faintly, leaned forward. And what of your capacity for conflict? Humans are known to wage wars among themselves, are they not? How can we be certain you will not bring chaos to Veyra? Ethan felt the sting of the question. It is true that humanity's history is marred by conflict, he admitted. But we also aspire to peace, to growth. Our exploration of the stars arises from a need to evolve beyond our past mistakes. This alliance, if you'll have it, can help ensure that both our species move forward together. The elders exchanged glances, their staffs pulsing in unison. The older woman who spoke first looked down upon Selara. And what say you, Princess Selara? You have spent time with this human. Do you sense any duplicity, any ill intent? Selara lifted her gaze, and a subtle aura seemed to radiate from her. No ill intent, she said quietly. Ethan Drake has shown only sincerity. Moreover, there is a sign, possibly linked to ancient prophecy, that must be considered. A murmur rippled through the chamber. One of the elders frowned. You speak of the old scrolls, do you not? The ones hidden in the Temple of Radiance? If so, we have reason to be wary. The prophecy is vague, its interpretations varied. Selara's voice gained a firmer edge. Yet we cannot deny it mentions the one who can withstand the fatal touch. It speaks of a union between Veyra and a distant star people. This might be more than coincidence. Ethan listened, heart pounding. A swirl of doubt and wonder washed over him. Could he truly be the one referenced by their ancient texts? It seemed too improbable, too grand. And yet, the more he observed Selara's poised figure, the more he sensed that events were in motion far beyond his control. The lead elder raised her staff, and the floating prisms overhead slowed their rotation. We, the council, will consider your proposal, Ethan Drake. Yet we must test this claim of prophecy if we are to acknowledge your significance. We will schedule a demonstration. Though we cannot force you to risk your life, it may prove essential to discovering the truth about your connection to our princess. The words hung in the chamber, and Ethan swallowed hard. A demonstration? Surely they did not mean for him to touch Selara without her gloves? The mere suggestion made his limbs go cold. He glanced at Selara, noting how her features had tensed, how her jaw set in rigid discomfort. She looked at him apologetically, as though silently pleading for his forgiveness. Before he could respond, the older elder lowered her staff. You will remain in our palace under Selara's watchful care until we have prepared the demonstration. If the prophecy indeed points to you, then you shall have all the rights and protections it grants. If not, then we fear further negotiations may be in jeopardy. With those words, the council session ended, and the elders filed out, their robes swishing softly along the polished floor. Selara bowed once more, gesturing for Ethan to accompany her. Together, they left the chamber, stepping into a corridor where only distant footsteps echoed. I won't let them force this, Selara said in a low tone, her eyes avoiding his. If it's too dangerous, we can refuse. No one has survived my touch, Ethan. He let out a shaky breath. I might have come here as an envoy, but I'm not ignorant of the stakes. If this demonstration can unite our worlds, maybe it's worth the risk. Selara glanced over, shock etched into her features. Do not say so lightly. Think of your life, your people who await your return. The chance of survival is negligible. Her words shook him, but another feeling stirred in his gut, a faint, hopeful stirring that perhaps there was some deeper truth to the prophecy. Perhaps the cosmos had woven their destinies in ways neither could fully fathom. I'll consider the test, Ethan said, but not as a fool rushing to his death. Perhaps we can find answers before it happens, to ensure we aren't blinded by tradition or half-read prophecies. Selara's expression softened, gratitude pooling in her eyes. Very well. There is a hidden library, deeper in the palace. It contains fragments of the old scripts that shaped this prophecy. If you wish to search for answers, we will need to go there. But be warned, we may stir unwanted attention. Ethan nodded, steeling himself. Then let us begin. If there is a chance that these ancient texts hold the key to your curse, or to forging peace between Veyra and Earth, we cannot stand idle. Selara's gaze flickered with a hint of renewed determination. Then follow me, Earth Envoy. Follow me where few have dared tread. Together, they ventured further into the palace's labyrinthine passages, unaware that in the shadows, figures watched their every move, waiting to act at the first sign of the prophecy being fulfilled. The hidden library lay beyond grand halls and silent corridors lit by flickering crystal sconces. Gradually, the palace's smooth architecture gave way to rough-hewn walls carved long ago. Dust clung to corners, and an echo lingered, as though the ancient stones themselves were whispering. Selara and Ethan proceeded carefully, accompanied by the occasional hiss of a hidden mechanism adjusting the temperature or airflow. At last, they approached a circular doorway sealed by an elaborate, mechanical lock. Intricate segments slid and clicked, forming complex symbols that Selara manipulated with a practiced hand. The lock whirred, and the doorway slid open, revealing a chamber lined with shelves upon shelves of translucent tablets, scrolls made from unknown materials, and delicate artifacts resting in protective fields of shimmering energy. A hushed awe fell over Ethan. Ancient knowledge, potentially thousands of years old, was arrayed in every direction. The entire room glowed with subtle pulses of light, as if knowledge itself radiated a faint luminescence. "This is the repository of illumined histories," Selara said softly, walking forward. "Much of what we know about our early civilization is kept here, including prophecies we can scarcely understand." Ethan wandered along the shelves, scanning alien glyphs etched into rectangular plates. Some glowed, while others were dark and cracked with age. It was a staggering volume of information. "How do we find the prophecy you spoke of? The one referencing the fatal touch?" Selara pointed to a corner of the library where a small dais held a cylindrical container. "That capsule contains fragments from the time of the Great Rift, an era when Veyra was almost torn apart by civil war. It said a seer, known as the Oracle of the Six Moons, left warnings about a princess and an outsider whose union could reshape the future." Ethan approached the dais, noticing the container's top. It bore an ornate carving of a hand reaching for a star. When Selara pressed her gloved palm against it, a mechanism activated, and the capsule opened with a soft hiss. Within lay a single scroll, old and crinkled, protected by a thin layer of shimmering air. Selara carefully lifted it, then gently unrolled it on a low table. The text was written in swirling glyphs that almost seemed alive. They rearranged themselves in front of Ethan's eyes, adapting to his mind so he could read their meaning. A wave of vertigo washed over him as the words sank in. "When the child of dust meets the child of starlight, the cursed hand shall find deliverance. The union shall rekindle ancient flames, bridging two worlds that once were one. Yet the harbingers of old power shall strike, fearing the end of their dominion. Only by defying the wheel of destiny shall new stars be born." Ethan raised his gaze to meet Selara's eyes. It seems pretty clear, doesn't it? Child of dust, likely me, a human from Earth. Child of starlight, maybe you. It references a cursed hand. That certainly fits your condition. And it talks about bridging two worlds that were once one." Selara nodded, expression pensive. "Ancient legends speak of a time when our ancestors traveled among the stars, forging bonds with other species. Perhaps humans were once allies, or something more. But that part has been lost to time." He gently brushed his fingers over the glowing script. "And there's a warning. The harbingers of old power shall strike." "Who could that be?" She set the scroll down. "The High Council is not the only ruling force in Veyra. A secret circle called the Conclave of Sundering is rumored to exist, formed by those who fear that ancient power might weaken their control. If they see you as a threat, they will do anything to destroy you. Possibly me as well." Ethan's blood ran cold. "We need to get this information to the Council of Elders. They must see that an alliance is foreseen, that it's part of a prophecy predating any of us." Selara touched his shoulder lightly, gloved, of course, and shook her head. "The Elders might be compromised. Not all are free of the Conclave's influence. Bringing these scrolls to them directly might lead to a trap. Let us proceed carefully. First, we must confirm that you can withstand my touch. If you can, it will prove the prophecy beyond doubt, rallying those who believe in it. But if the demonstration fails, they will never let you leave Veyra alive." His heart pounded, but he squared his shoulders. "Then we plan our own test, in secret. No audience. If it works, we choose our moment to reveal the truth. If it doesn't, well." Selara's eyes glistened with sorrow. "I cannot bear the thought of another life claimed by my curse. I have seen it happen, Ethan, seen good people reduced to nothingness in mere moments." Ethan gently took her gloved hand, offering what comfort he could. "We'll find a way, Princess. We have to." She remained silent for a moment, letting the library's gentle hum fill the air. Then, with determined caution, she placed the scroll back into its container. "If we are to do this test, we must do it soon. Our time is short, and eyes may already be watching." A sudden sensation of being observed sent a prickle along Ethan's skin. He turned to see a flicker of movement near the library's entrance. A robed figure darted away, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing in the corridor. Selara's jaw tightened. "We're discovered. Quick, we must leave here before more come." They replaced the container's lid, sealing the prophecy inside, then hurried from the hidden library, guided by flickering lights that cast elongated shadows on the ancient walls. Selara led them through winding passages, her steps swift and resolute, as if she had navigated these secret ways before. Still, fear gnawed at Ethan's gut, for the prophecy had already begun to stir Veyra's undercurrents. Whispers would spread, alliances would shift, and in the crosshairs of an uncertain future stood a human envoy who might just hold the key to a curse centuries old. Days passed in a tense haze. The Council of Elders announced that the official demonstration would be held under the light of Veyra's 2 moons, a ceremony open to select dignitaries. Word trickled through the palace that certain factions were outraged at the notion. Others awaited in hushed anticipation, convinced the prophecy's time had come. Selara and Ethan continued to meet in private, sometimes within the quiet recesses of moonlit courtyards, sometimes in hidden corners of the palace's labyrinth. Their discussions were increasingly tinged with a certain closeness, a shared vulnerability that transcended their roles as envoy and princess. Yet, the looming question of Selara's lethal touch remained unanswered. Neither dared attempt contact without gloves, fearful that legend might fail them. At last, the night of the ceremony arrived. Clothed in formal attire, Ethan walked beside Selara through a gathering of courtiers and curious onlookers. The courtyard chosen for the event was vast, surrounded by sculpted pillars and open to the star-filled sky. Twin moons glowed overhead, one large and pale silver, the other smaller and tinted green. Their combined light drenched the space in an ethereal glow. Elders stood in a semicircle, each holding their staff. The older woman who had first questioned Ethan stepped forward. "We gather under the witness of our moons to test an extraordinary claim, that Ethan Drake of Earth can endure the fatal touch of Princess Selara. Should he survive, it will mark a new chapter in our history, and perhaps confirm an ancient prophecy." A hush fell. Veyrans and a few off-world dignitaries stood in silent witness. The air felt charged with expectation. Selara approached Ethan slowly, her gloved hands trembling. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with worry and something else. Hope, perhaps, that her curse might finally be undone. Ethan's heart thumped so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. He recalled the words on the scroll, "Only by defying the wheel of destiny shall new stars be born." Was it destiny that he had come here? Was this moment ordained by forces beyond comprehension? He removed his formal coat, then reached for Selara's gloved hand. She let him take it, her gaze unwavering despite the storm of emotion swirling within her. Slowly, she peeled off one glove, revealing a pale, graceful hand. The onlookers gasped, stepping back instinctively. Even the elders appeared ill at ease. Some clutched their staffs with white-knuckled grips. Selara's eyes, reflecting the moonlight, seemed to call out to Ethan, "Are you certain?" He offered a slight nod. Then, summoning every ounce of courage, he extended his bare hand, letting it hover just inches from hers. A silence so profound that one could hear the soft sigh of the night breeze envelop them. Then, gently, Selara pressed her palm against Ethan's. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. The watchers held their breath. Selara's fingertips trembled against his skin. A faint glow suffused their hands where they touched, cool, then warming, like a cosmic energy pulsing to life. Selara's lips parted in wonder. Ethan felt no pain, no sense of disintegration. Instead, a strange, soothing sensation coursed through him, as if his cells were resonating with an ancient frequency. Cries of alarm and astonishment erupted around them. Some onlookers fell to their knees. Courtiers stared in disbelief, while the elders looked on with a mix of awe and dread. Selara held Ethan's hand, tears glistening. Slowly, she withdrew her fingers, as if fearing she might still do him harm. But his hand remained intact, his flesh whole. Ethan exhaled a shaky breath. "I'm alive," he murmured, half disbelieving. Selara's eyes overflowed with tears, and she let out a trembling laugh. A laugh that sounded as though centuries of sorrow had melted in a single moment. Yet, in that same instant, an ominous vibration rippled through the courtyard. The ground trembled, and Ethan could see figures moving in the shadows. A voice, low and venomous, cut through the awe. Blasphemy. Heresy. The prophecy must be sealed. A group of masked individuals rushed forward, bearing strange weapons that glowed with dark energy. Selara's expression twisted into fear. Ethan recognized the malice in their eyes. This was likely the conclave of Sundering, determined to stop the prophecy from unfolding. Before anyone could react, blasts of energy arced through the air, striking at the crowd. Courtiers scattered, screaming. Elders raised their staffs, deflecting some of the projectiles, but a wave of chaos engulfed the courtyard. Ethan ducked, pulling Selara behind a pillar. "This is an attack," he shouted. "We have to get to safety." Selara's face was pale with shock, but her resolve hardened. "We must protect the elders. If the conclave seizes power, the prophecy will be lost." Ethan glanced around, searching for a path. The High Elder motioned for them to flee, her staff crackling with protective energy. The masked assailants advanced, unleashing volley after volley of lethal beams. In a single, horrifying moment, Ethan saw one of the masked figures hurl a black sphere that expanded into a swirling void, pulling a helpless courtier into oblivion. Summoning his courage, Ethan seized Selara's hand, the gloveless one, and felt an unexpected surge of strength pass between them. Together, they sprinted through the fray, weaving past the falling debris and injured Veyrans. Overhead, the two moons blazed with unnatural intensity, as if incensed by the violence below. At the courtyard's edge, an elder staggered, wounded by the conclave's dark beam. Ethan lunged forward, managing to deflect another shot by knocking over a heavy, ornate brazier. Selara knelt beside the wounded elder, pressing a small, device-like object to her chest. It glowed, stabilizing the elder's condition temporarily. But more assailants closed in, their weapons humming with lethal potential. Then, from high atop a parapet, a Veyran guard loyal to the crown unleashed a volley of shimmering bolts. The conclave members scattered, momentarily driven back. Seizing the respite, Ethan and Selara hurried the elder into an adjacent passage, along with a handful of trembling courtiers. The night was shattered. The wonder of the successful demonstration had been upended by violence and betrayal. Yet in Ethan's clasp, Selara's hand remained real, warm, and living. Its lethal edge was nullified by some cosmic grace that linked them. Their destiny, once only whispered in prophecy, now stood as a beacon of hope, and a target for those who would see it extinguished. The days following the ceremony were a blur of frantic planning and narrow escapes. The conclave of Sundering wasted no time mobilizing their forces, seizing key positions in the palace, and sowing fear among the populace. Word spread that Selara's curse had been undone by the touch of a human, sparking both reverence and fury. Some hailed it as a miracle. Others called it an abomination, an affront to ancient power structures. Sensing grave danger, the remaining loyalists orchestrated a daring escape for Selara and Ethan. The High Elder, though wounded, oversaw the operation. She revealed that a hidden starship, one built in secret to honor an old alliance, lay dormant beneath the palace. It was an artifact from centuries past, rumored to be of partially human design. Ethan stood beside Selara in the subterranean hangar, which was bathed in half-light from luminescent crystals. The ship before them was sleek, shaped like a crescent moon. Its hull glinted with alien metal, lines of faint gold tracing runic symbols along the sides. "We need to get off-world," Ethan said, scanning the hangar. "At least until we can regroup, or summon Earth's help." Selara ran her now bare fingers along the ship's surface, marveling at the sensation of physically connecting to something without her deadly aura interfering. A subtle wonder flickered across her face. "I never imagined I'd stand here, unloved, beside someone who isn't lying in dust at my feet. Perhaps we are meant for more." One of the loyalist guards, panting from exertion, appeared beside them. "Princess, you must depart now. The conclave is converging on this location, and they have sabotage drones. If you remain, they will destroy the ship, and you." Ethan helped Selara aboard, noting the starship's interior was designed for a pilot and co-pilot, with a handful of passenger seats. The control panels glowed faintly, ancient yet strangely familiar. He slid into the pilot's chair, scanning the alien script. It responded to his presence, adjusting to display partial Earth standard readouts, as if it recognized him. A tingle of recognition, something deep and genetic, stirred in his mind. "Selara," Ethan murmured, "this interface is... I can read it. Not just because of that adaptive script. It's almost like I know how to fly it." Her eyes widened. "That's impossible. Unless the stories of our shared ancestry are true. Perhaps in some long-forgotten epoch, Veyrans and humans collaborated on engineering, forging these controls with a universal interface. Your presence must be unlocking it. Outside, distant explosions rang out, echoing through the subterranean space. The guard waved frantically. Time is short. Go now. Ethan powered up the engines, hearing a harmonic hum fill the cabin. Panels illuminated in vibrant colors, the ship seemingly awakened from a centuries-long slumber. Selara strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, adrenaline coursing through her. With a deep breath, Ethan guided the vessel upward. Ancient doors slid open overhead, revealing a dark tunnel that spiraled toward the surface. The ship ascended swiftly, lights dancing along the hull. Behind them, loyalist guards fired at the approaching conclave members, buying precious seconds. The tunnel opened to the sky, revealing Veyra's swirling clouds, tinted a faint sapphire under starlight. Ethan clenched the controls, urging the craft to climb higher. Alarms sounded, indicating ground-based weaponry locking on. Selara keyed defensive shields, and the ship shimmered with protective energy. A barrage of beams streaked upward, but each dissipated against the shield. Now, Ethan muttered, pushing the throttle forward. We leave Veyra behind for now. The starship shot toward the upper atmosphere, leaving behind the chaos below. Through the viewport, Ethan saw flashes of light as conclave forces tried in vain to intercept. Their ships soared into the darkness of space, where the azure curve of Veyra lay beneath them like a precious jewel. Selara gazed down, tears slipping silently. Our world, our home. I never thought I would flee it as a fugitive, but I know we must do this. If we are to save Veyra, we must uncover the truth of its past and the secrets that link us to Earth. Only then can we break the Conclave's power. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll return one day, with evidence strong enough to rally your people against the Conclave. Until then, we need a safe haven, maybe an outpost or a neutral planet where we can regroup. She nodded, composing herself. There is a place. The Starforge Archives, hidden in the orbit of a gas giant within the adjacent system. Our records say it holds artifacts from the earliest days of Veyra's interstellar travel. Perhaps we can learn more about this prophecy, about your ability to nullify my curse. Ethan deftly set coordinates, following a half-intuitive sense that guided him through the star map. The ship's controls seemed to share small bursts of insight with him, as though it recognized him as an ancient pilot long separated from his craft. With a burst of drive energy, the crescent-shaped vessel leaped into hyperspace, leaving behind the terror of the palace to chase a flicker of hope in the far reaches of the galaxy. Inside the cockpit, Ethan glanced at Selara's uncovered hand resting on the console. On impulse, he set his own hand over hers. She met his eyes, her expression gentle yet determined. No dust, no pain, no death, just warmth. A warmth that felt like destiny made tangible. Though shadows loomed in the periphery of their flight, one truth burned bright. Together, they had sparked the prophecy to life, defying eons of isolation and fear. Hyperspace travel was surprisingly smooth in the ancient Veyran ship, as though it cut through the fabric of reality with practiced grace. Time held an elusive quality in this shimmering corridor of blue and white streaks. Selara drifted off to a light sleep, exhaustion finally overcoming her, while Ethan kept a steady watch on the instruments. His mind churned with questions, with a sense of wonder that somehow felt both exhilarating and heavy. When they emerged from hyperspace, they found themselves in the vicinity of a colossal gas giant, ringed by a swirling belt of icy debris. Orbiting the planet was an abandoned station, the Starforge Archives, outlined against the lavender glow of the planet's atmosphere. Many of its modules were dark, no lights emanating from the surface, except for a solitary docking beacon pulsing a faint white. It looked ancient, battered by cosmic radiation and time. Ethan guided the ship toward the station's docking clamp. Magnetic stabilizers locked them in place, and a pressurized tube extended from the station to the ship's airlock. Selara stirred awake, blinking at the scene unfolding beyond the cockpit. So it's real, she murmured, standing to join Ethan at the viewport. I always thought the Starforge Archives were half legend, a place where the earliest star maps and artifacts were kept, long before Veyra turned inward. They donned simple breathing apparatuses, just in case the station's air was compromised, and stepped into the umbilical corridor. Dim emergency lighting flickered as they made their way through the airlock. Once inside, they found the interior of the station was mostly intact, though dust coated much of the machinery. A sense of ancient history pervaded the corridors. Selara led them past sealed doors and dormant consoles, following corridor markers that matched old Veyran script. Finally, they reached a circular chamber with a large, dome-like ceiling. Beneath the dome rested a series of pedestals, each supporting holographic projectors. Along the walls were etched murals showing ships traveling through star lanes, forging alliances with other species. Ethan spotted a faint depiction that looked almost human-like, intertwined with Veyran figures. "Look here," Selara whispered, pointing to a panel near one pedestal. "It's a genealogy, or a record of civilizations we once allied with. This figure, it bears a resemblance to humans, does it not? The posture, the facial structure." Ethan nodded, studying the image. If the carving truly dated back thousands of years, it suggested that humans and Veyrans had once stood side by side, perhaps as friends or partners, eons before Earth's recorded history. This could prove the prophecy's references to a lost history linking our worlds. "We need to see if there's more detailed information." A flicker drew their attention to the center of the chamber. One of the pedestals stirred, as if sensing their presence. A pale beam of light projected upward, coalescing into a hologram of a stately Veyran figure dressed in archaic robes. "Greetings," the figure said, his voice echoing softly. "I am Archivist Raylon, caretaker of this station. If you are seeing this, then times have grown dire. Our link to Earth has been severed, and the dream of unity recedes. Know that we built these archives to preserve the memory of our bond." Ethan and Selara exchanged a stunned look. The hologram continued. "In the age of the Great Conjunction, humans and Veyrans discovered we shared an extraordinary biological resonance. An energy synergy that allowed certain pairs to forge a deeper bond, one that could negate harmful anomalies. It was widely believed this synergy was a gift from the cosmos, a bridging of two species that once diverged from a common lineage." The holographic archivist paused, flickering. However, a faction among the Veyrans, led by those who feared the power of this synergy, attempted to suppress it. They locked away knowledge and spread fear about contact with humans. Eventually, the alliance crumbled, leading to centuries of isolation. But a prophecy was recorded that in a future epoch, when one cursed with lethal touch meets a human who resonates with their being, they shall unlock the gates of destiny once more. Selara's hand flew to her mouth. Tears glistened in her eyes. Ethan's chest tightened, hearing a story that mirrored their own. The figure's voice grew somber. "To those who come here seeking answers, know this. Your bond holds the power to heal the rifts inflicted upon Veyra. But those who cling to the old fears will not relinquish their control easily. You must stand united, or all shall be lost." With that final proclamation, the hologram winked out, leaving the chamber cloaked in an almost reverent stillness. Selara turned to Ethan, her expression luminous with realization. "It's true, all of it. We were once allies, or even one people, sharing an energy synergy that nullifies certain physiological traits. That's why my curse doesn't kill you. You and I, our genetic resonance must be the key." Ethan gently took her hand, without fear, marveling still at the absence of that fatal power. "Then we have the proof we need. If we can broadcast these records, if we can reach Earth or loyalists on Veyra, we can expose the Conclave's lies." A spark of determination ignited in Selara's eyes. "Yes, we must let everyone know. The Conclave's power hinges on secrecy and fear. Once the truth is out, their grip will weaken." But the moment was cut short by a distant clang. The station shuddered, and a muffled alarm activated, the lights flickering from standby to an eerie red. Ethan tensed. That can't be good. They raced back to the corridor, only to find a breach where sabotage drones, shaped like dark, insectoid machines, forced their way through. Their metal limbs clicked ominously as they scuttled toward Ethan and Selara. Energy pulses glowed on the drone's undercarriages. Selara raised her hand, summoning a device that emitted a crackling force field. "They must have tracked us here," she shouted over the screeching alarm. "The Conclave's sabotage drones are relentless. If they blow the archives, all evidence of our bond will be lost." Ethan scanned the corridors, spotting a sealed bulkhead to their right. We can lead them away from this chamber, maybe lock them in another section before they detonate. Nodding, Selara dropped the force field momentarily, baiting the drones to follow. The machines lurched after them, launching sporadic energy bolts that hissed against the station's metal walls. The pair sprinted, hearts pounding, turning at intersections to keep the drones close, but not too close. They reached a deserted section with heavy blast doors. Ethan dove for the control panel, fingers flying over the archaic interface. The panel beeped with finality, and the massive doors began to grind shut. But one drone rushed ahead, slipping through the narrowing gap. It aimed a pulsing weapon at Ethan. In a split-second decision, Selara leaped forward, pressing her bare hand to the drone's metallic surface. To Ethan's shock, the machine's chitin-like plating began to corrode with a sizzling crackle, turning to dust under her once deadly power. The effect was immediate and total, the drone collapsing into a pile of metal fragments that disintegrated into fine powder. Ethan stared, astonished by the demonstration of her lethal gift, now used to protect rather than inadvertently harm. Selara's eyes glowed with fierce resolve, yet tears glistened along her lashes, for she had always hated this curse, this power that she now wielded with desperate necessity. She clenched her hand, stepping back from the mound of dust that had been a drone. The blast doors sealed, trapping the other drones behind them. An explosion rocked the enclosed section, but it was contained. Selara trembled, and Ethan rushed to her side, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "I'm so sorry you had to do that," he said softly. She shook her head, tears threatening to fall. I had no choice. If we are to protect the archives, I must use whatever means I have. Even this terrible power." Ethan gathered her into an embrace, careful yet unafraid. She leaned against him, letting the moment wash over them. Then, firming her resolve, she looked up. "We have to hurry," she said, before more arrive. Back in the main archive chamber, Selara and Ethan worked together to activate the station's ancient communications array. It was buried in the station's code, a relic from the days when Veyra broadcast signals across galaxies. Dust caked the consoles, and the energy lines hummed with uncertain fluctuations, but the old tech still held power. Working side by side, they interfaced the starship's systems with the station's. A swirl of lights danced across the screens, revealing star charts that glowed with the memory of eons. The station's rotating antenna extended outward, its battered frame scraping against debris in the ring around the gas giant. At last, the entire array came online, a faint pulse traveling along subspace frequencies. Ethan typed a final command into the console, uploading the archivist's holographic message and genealogical data that showed humanity and Veyrans once shared a deeper connection. That file would now be broadcast to any receiver in range, including Earth's relay stations. If Earth's starships were near enough, they would hear the call, learn of Veyra's plight, and the old alliance that needed rekindling. Selara placed a hand upon the console, her bare skin resting against the alien metal. A gentle glow emanated, as though she were channeling her own energies into the device. "It is done," she breathed. "The truth is out there now." But even as hope surged through them, a klaxon blared. Screens began flashing with proximity alerts. Selara's stomach clenched at the readouts. Multiple craft inbound, conclave warships. They must have traced the broadcast. Ethan clenched his jaw. "We'll never hold them off with this old station alone. Our best chance is to flee. With Earth or any friendly Veyrans as allies, we stand a chance of stopping the conclave for good." They dashed back to the starship, tension mounting with each step. Through the station's viewport, they saw 3 looming vessels approach. Sleek and dark, the conclave warships bristled with weaponry. Already, the station's hull was taking hits, sending plumes of debris into space. Ethan powered up their crescent vessel, the engines responding with renewed vigor. Alarms blared across the station. Another tremor rattled the docking clamps. "Hold on," he shouted, punching the release. The starship shot away from the station, weaving through the ring's icy fragments while avoiding the conclave's weapon locks. Selara's breath caught in her throat as bright lances of energy sliced across the void, narrowly missing them. She stabilized the shields, focusing intently on the controls that read her neural impulses. Despite the chaos, There was a harmony in their movements, her synergy with Ethan, each anticipating the other's motions. One conclave warship veered ahead, blocking their escape route. The other two began to flank them. Ethan grimaced, scanning for an opening. "They're trying to box us in." Selara's voice trembled slightly. "Then we find another path." They dipped lower toward the swirling atmosphere of the gas giant. The warships followed, hugging the edge of the planet's gravitational pull. With deft maneuvers, Ethan dodged ballistic projectiles, letting the planet's gravitational eddies slingshot them. Yet, the warships closed in. Suddenly, a new series of signals lit up on the cockpit display. Selara's eyes widened. "We're receiving transmissions from an unidentified fleet. They're approaching from hyperspace." Before their astonished eyes, a cluster of starships emerged in brilliant flashes of white-blue light. The lead vessel bore markings that Ethan recognized, an Earth Alliance insignia. The others were smaller, reminiscent of allied worlds under Earth's stewardship. They had come, alerted by the broadcast from the Starforge archives. In moments, energy beams lanced out from these new arrivals, forcing the Conclave warships to break off their pursuit. A triumphant surge welled in Ethan's chest. "Earth heard us. They're here." Selara allowed herself a small, relieved smile, tears misting her eyes. "We're not alone. Perhaps together, we can stand against the Conclave." Despite the chaos of spaceborne battle erupting around them, a sense of renewed hope bound them. The Earth fleet engaged the Conclave ships, strategic bursts of advanced weaponry rattling the darkness. Meanwhile, the battered station drifted in the planet's orbit, a silent testament to an age-old alliance now rekindled. In the starship's cockpit, Ethan and Selara shared a glance. One that spoke of trials endured, bonds forged, and a new horizon of possibility waiting just beyond the next star. He reached for her hand, and she clasped his without fear, the synergy of their touch lighting up their spirits. At that moment, they knew, no matter the battles yet to come, they had already won the greatest victory, over ancient lies, over isolation, and over a curse once thought unbreakable. Over the following weeks, an interstellar coalition formed between Earth's alliance and loyal Veyran factions who opposed the Conclave. Diplomatic envoys met in hidden sectors, forging strategies to liberate Veyra from the conspiracy that had plunged it into chaos. The Conclave, though formidable, found itself on the defensive, its lies exposed by the transmissions from the Starforge archives. Ethan and Selara traveled with the Coalition's fleet, working tirelessly to rally more Veyrans to the cause. Their story, the princess whose deadly touch was nullified by a human's presence, swept across star channels and clandestine broadcasts, sowing seeds of hope among the populace. Rumors circulated of the ancient bond between Veyra and Earth, of a future shaped by unity rather than fear. At last, the time came for a decisive assault on Veyra's orbit, where Conclave strongholds had seized the old city ships that once protected the planet. Through skillful maneuvers and combined firepower, the Coalition managed to breach the Conclave's perimeter, clearing a path for a landing party on the surface. Ethan and Selara descended to the Capitol Palace in a troop shuttle, escorted by squads of loyalists and Earth soldiers. The once familiar halls were scarred by battle. Debris littered the corridors, and flickering lights cast uncertain shadows across the floors. Occasionally, they passed prisoners, Conclave enforcers who had surrendered rather than fight to the death. At the heart of the palace, the Council of Elders awaited, haggard from captivity but visibly relieved to see Selara. The High Elder, her wounds partially healed, rose shakily from a makeshift cot. She managed a weary smile at the sight of princess and envoy, hand in hand. "It is as the prophecy foretold," the elder murmured, voice laden with emotion. "You have returned, bearing the truth that sets us free." Selara knelt beside the High Elder. "We had help. From Earth, from the memory of our once shared heritage, and from the unwavering courage of our people." She stood, voice trembling with gratitude and determination as she addressed the elders and the gathered loyalists. Veyra can no longer seal itself away. The Conclave has shown that isolation breeds fear and tyranny. We must choose a new path, one of partnership, guided by the truths we have uncovered. The crowd stirred, murmurs of agreement rippling outward. The High Elder clasped Selara's hand, then turned her gaze upon Ethan. "And you, Ethan Drake, you are living proof that the lethal curse can be undone, that our union with humanity can reignite a lost harmony. We are indebted to you." Ethan bowed his head humbly. "I stand for peace. I only hope Veyra and Earth can grow stronger together, learning from each other. We share more history than we ever imagined." A hush fell, charged with renewed unity. Then, from beyond the damaged arches of the palace, a rumbling signaled the final wave of battle. Conclave loyalists were staging a last stand. The Allied forces moved swiftly to quell the resistance, ensuring no further sabotage could threaten Veyra's fragile renaissance. In the midst of it all, Selara stood as a pillar of resolve, no longer hidden behind gloves and shame. Her curse, neutralized by the synergy with Ethan, became instead a powerful symbol of Veyra's future, once feared, now transformed through interconnection. Weeks bled into months as Veyra slowly recovered from the upheaval. Reconstruction efforts unified Veyrans under a spirit of cooperation not seen for generations. Earth, in turn, sent aid ships and engineering teams to help rebuild critical infrastructure. The shared labor, the mingling of cultures, and the exchange of knowledge began to sow seeds of a lasting alliance. During that time, Ethan and Selara grew closer, their bond deepening beyond prophecy or cosmic synergy. They learned to laugh over mundane trifles, to revel in daily life free from the shadow of her lethal touch. Yet both felt a sense of responsibility, to guide their peoples toward a destiny that had once been lost to the annals of history. One sunlit morning, the newly crowned Queen Selara, clad in shimmering robes that refracted the light in prismatic colors, addressed an assembly in the grand courtyard, the same place where the conclave had once attacked. The courtyard had been painstakingly restored, its pillars gleaming under the sky's teal-blue canopy. Thousands of Veyrans gathered, alongside representatives from Earth and other allied star systems. Ethan stood among the dignitaries, heart pounding as he watched Selara ascend the podium. Her eyes shone with quiet confidence. Silence fell across the gathering, punctuated only by the gentle hum of the palace's protective shield, still under repair. "My people," Selara began, her voice amplified yet resonant with warmth. "We stand at the threshold of a new era. Long have we believed ourselves alone, cursed by the mistakes of our past, mired in fear of the unknown. Yet, the cosmos has reminded us that we were never truly isolated. Our allies, once lost to history, have returned to offer us their hands and friendship." She lifted her unloved hand, letting the crowd see the symbol it had become. "I spent my life believing my touch was death, but now, that same hand can join with a friend. Here," she reached for Ethan, who climbed onto the podium, clasping her hand in his. "And together, we become something greater than we were alone. This alliance, this synergy, is not merely a gift to me. It is an emblem of our shared future." The crowd stirred with emotion. Many Veyrans, once fearful, now saw in Selara's example a profound hope. Off-world dignitaries exchanged proud nods. Cameras captured every moment, broadcasting it across the network of star systems. "I vow," Selara declared, voice steady, "that Veyra shall no longer be ruled by fear. We will honor the bonds that connect us to Earth and to the greater galaxy. We will celebrate the unity we share, for it is in our union that we find strength, compassion, and the promise of something new." Thunderous applause resounded, echoing off the courtyard walls. Tears welled in many eyes. Selara turned to Ethan, a radiant smile curving her lips. The cheers grew louder, a symphony of hope reverberating through the palace. For a moment, Ethan forgot the weight of formality and let himself bask in the triumph of this journey. From humble envoy to the living link in an ancient prophecy, he had never imagined such a destiny. Later, in a more private setting, Selara led Ethan to a tranquil garden atop the palace spires. Bioluminescent flowers swayed in a gentle breeze, their glow mingling with the early evening starlight. The hush of the city below provided a serene backdrop. She reached out and took his hand, looking at him in earnest affection. "None of this would have been possible without you," she said softly. "You risked your life to touch me, to believe in something beyond known possibility. We've come so far." He squeezed her hand. "We did it together, Selara." You showed me courage and a grace that went beyond any curse. And look at what we've achieved, both for Veyra and Earth." In the starlight, they shared a quiet moment of profound connection. The nightmares of the Conclave, the secrets buried in ancient archives, the lethal touch once so dreaded, those had all led them here, to a moment of calm, of shared hope for the future. The months rolled into a year of transformation. Joint research teams discovered more about the genetic resonance linking certain humans and Veyrans, paving the way for medical breakthroughs that might one day eliminate Selara's lethal condition entirely. Trade routes were established, cultural exchanges flourished, and knowledge flowed freely across the newly united star systems. Ethan, having completed his role as an official envoy, remained on Veyra, welcomed as a hero and as a beloved companion to the Queen. He found meaning in helping shape the next chapter of Veyran-Earth relations, advising committees on bridging cultural gaps, sharing Earth's diplomacy lessons while learning from Veyra's centuries of wisdom. One evening, news arrived of a momentous event, the unveiling of a grand memorial in the restored courtyard, dedicated to the memory of those who had perished under old prejudices and the violence of the Conclave. Selara and Ethan stood side by side before the memorial, which featured an intricate sculpture of two hands reaching toward each other, one reminiscent of Veyran artistry, the other clearly human. Lights swirled around it, projecting a shimmering aura of unity. The High Elder, flanked by other council members, approached them. Her gaze was gentle, reflecting a respect that had been forged through shared trials. "Your Majesties," she said, using the formal address now that Selara had officially ascended. "The Council extends its deepest gratitude. Veyra is reborn, and Earth stands as our cherished partner. May this alliance guide future generations." Selara smiled, glancing at Ethan. He had not yet embraced any royal title, though many insisted he was fit to stand at her side in every way. He simply bowed, a gesture of humility that endeared him further to the Veyrans. As twilight deepened, Selara led Ethan to a secluded terrace overlooking the sprawling city. Soft luminescence illuminated the stone rail. The twin moons rose overhead, casting twin beams of light across the sky. In that magical glow, she turned to him, eyes full of promise. "There is one final step I wish to take," she said, voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "A personal one, yet also symbolic for our people. Will you join me in forging the future not just as allies, but as partners, as something deeper than prophecy could ever name?" Ethan's heart thudded. He gently touched her cheek, marveling still at the miracle that allowed him to do so without harm. "Selara, I would stand beside you always. Call it love, call it destiny. I choose you, and the path we walk together." She smiled, tears in her luminous eyes. The next day, an announcement spread across Veyra. Queen Selara would bond with Ethan Drake in a ceremony that honored both Veyran tradition and Earth's cultural heritage. The wedding, if one could call it that, promised to be a grand declaration of unity, marking the first official union between the two species since the days of the Great Conjunction. On the day of their union, the palace brimmed with life and celebration. Attendees from Earth's alliance mingled with Veyrans, exchanging greetings in languages that once seemed impossible to bridge. Laughter echoed in the vaulted halls, and the courtyard, where once the Conclave's dark violence had reigned, now overflowed with music and color. Ethan stood at the center of the courtyard, wearing ceremonial garb woven from Earth and Veyran fabrics. Selara approached, regal and glowing in attire that caught the sunlight, a coronet of starlit crystals adorning her hair. The assembled crowd quieted as the High Elder raised her staff, signifying the union's blessing. A hush fell, then a gentle chime resonated. Selara reached out her unloved hand to Ethan. He took it, palm to palm, with a tender smile. The crowd erupted into applause and cheers, the sound magnifying throughout the city. In their joined hands shone a faint luminescence, a physical testament to the synergy that had defied centuries of fear. The ceremony concluded with words in both Earth's standard and Veyran script, affirming that this bond, this love, symbolized not only two hearts uniting, but also two worlds forging a destiny of shared prosperity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden rays across the city, Selara, and Ethan turned to the crowd, hand in hand, ready to greet their future with unwavering hope. In the days that followed, as celebrations continued and treaties were finalized, a sense of peace and renewal bloomed across Veyra. Earth emissaries marveled at the ancient architecture, while Veyrans journeyed off-world to explore the wonders of Earth. Scientific minds joined forces, unraveling new mysteries of biology and energy. And through it all, the memory of the Conclave's tyranny faded, replaced by the knowledge that unity, understanding, and courage could overcome even the deepest divides. High above in the star-strewn sky, the orbiting station known as the Starforge Archives remained a silent sentinel, a testament to the past that had shaped the future. Occasionally, travelers visited the station to learn from its ancient records, guided by the dream of universal harmony. And each time they saw the old holograms, they were reminded that prophecy alone does not shape destiny. It is the choices we make, the bonds we forge, and the love we nurture that truly light the path forward. Thus ends the tale of the alien princess whose touch was fatal, and the one human who defied that fate. Their union kindled a spark in the cosmos that would burn for generations, reminding all who look to the stars that even curses can be broken, that even star-crossed worlds can unite, and that the tapestry of existence is woven from hope, courage, and the enduring power of a hand stretched out in friendship, love, and trust.